Welcome, John. How are you today?
Doing good. How are you, DeAnna?
Good. All right, everybody. This is my favorite inspector, John Corrother from Pillar to Post. I appreciate you being here with me today, trying to make best use of this time that we have at home and just trying to inform our favorite people out in the world about home inspections today. So I know today we are going to talk a little bit about tips for spring maintenance, first and foremost. What do you got for me?
So thanks for having me. Yeah, one of the things that has been kind of forefront in my mind during all this extra time we have at home anyway has been a lot to do with the most productive and the best ways to spend our time and money on the stuff that needs done anyway. And it's been a really great opportunity. Trying to throw some silver lining at all of this. And it really applies well. The things that we would normally kind of get behind on or need to get done anyway are really great things to do if you're prepping your house for sale anyway. So I think the advice holds very true for the specific situations of people that are getting ready to list, and just the things that we're going to be doing anyway. Right now, what I focused on is we kind of made a list of the things that we wanted to and needed to get done, and prioritize those based on cost and amount of labor that it was going to take to do it. Because right now, normal times might be a little bit easier to justify paying somebody for the labor on things, just because time is valuable. And now we have a little bit extra of that, so it's made a lot of sense for us to do some things that we would have probably put off or maybe had somebody do. A lot of this stuff is things that I recommend to my clients all the time that are buying and selling homes. We talk about a lot during the purchase process about what is good maintenance tips, things to stay on top of your house, things to keep it going well and avoid problems. Home inspectors are no different than any other professional. We give people advice and don't always take our own. So I've been using this personally to work on the outside of the house a lot. One of the things that we see on houses with basements and crawl spaces a lot is keeping an eye on drainage around the house. I had a couple spots on my home where it wasn't a problem, but it certainly wasn't perfect, and we had potential for issues, and it was not a fun job, but it was very inexpensive and easy to do otherwise. So I installed a little bit of extra drainage in one corner of my house. We are installing window wells all the way around. I've got a basement in an older home, and so that's really applicable to what a lot of people have. Is going around and adding those things. We did it out of 4x4 timbers, which are really inexpensive, and tend to look really nice for a long time. They're not maintenance free, but they are. They look really good. They're easy to do. So we're installing those all the way around the house. It's adding a little bit of a nice look, and providing a practical purpose. And like I said, the 4x4, the treated lumber is, it's not the cheapest thing ever, but it's one of those that it wasn't a hard justification to spend a little bit of money on those. Painting and sealing.
And I was just going to touch real quick on the drainage. I know in my last newsletter I put out, I know every inspection we have, you're always combining the cleaning of the gutters so that the water can flow properly and then get that water away from the house. I didn't mean to interrupt, but that is, I know that's something you preach about all the time. And I know every time I look at a house, I look at those things.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we're just dialing in on our house, and it's really cheap and easy to do. It takes a little bit of effort and time, but we found it really gratifying the last, couple weeks, having a little bit of extra time to do these things.
Us too.
Yeah, it's been really nice. It's a good way to kind of forget and then, involve yourself in something that you're getting positive results from. So yeah, it's been those kind of things, just really dial in the little things. We've had enough rain. I actually last night with the storms got to verify that my new little drainage system was working properly. Downspouts getting away from the house, getting the gutters cleaned up, and all of those things are things that we're taking the time to focus on, and it makes a difference.
How far do you think that we need to make sure our drainage, our gutters drain down, and then the extensions, how far away is a good number to make sure that we're flowing? I know when I'm walking around, I see a lot of the bottom pieces where the gutters go down and it just sits there. And I know that we should probably have it further away, but is there a good number, 3 feet, 6 feet?
So it kind of depends. The best practical average, I would say, is the plastic downspout extenders, just the corrugated tube style extenders. They're usually about 6 feet long, and that's a good application for most houses. Houses on slabs, you're talking about those splash trays. A slab house with a really good slope, a good grade around the house that moves water naturally. That's the rare circumstance where those will actually work pretty well. In most cases, I tell people those are just kind of useless. Get rid of them. It'll keep from getting divots in the yard, but they're not actually moving that much water. But yeah, those tube extenders, I know on my house, my grade is okay. It's not great, which is pretty average. Most people have an okay grade, but it's not great. We get it a little bit further. I focused on having at least 5 feet on all of mine, and it seems to work pretty well. Getting it pointing the right direction is as much of the battle as anything. I've seen 6 foot extenders that just completely point the wrong direction, and all the water just runs right back to the house. So the paying attention to which way the yard slopes in those areas makes a big difference. And with those, there's no specific answer, but the houses that are the most susceptible to problems tend to be basements and crawl spaces, especially older homes. Crawl spaces on relatively flat suburban lots are the most problematic, and in those cases, you sometimes go into the extreme of 10 to 12 feet on those extenders is really what's needed, and can solve a lot of existing and potential problems pretty inexpensively.
That brings me to crawl spaces. I know we see lots of moisture right now, especially spring. Crawl spaces full of water. You want to talk to that for a moment? Recommendations on maybe preventing that from happening?
The company, there's an entire industries, built around fixing crawl spaces. It's that says something that it should be a big priority. It can be relatively simple. For a lot of houses, the prevention is way less expensive than the cure. Once problems get bad, they can be very expensive and difficult to correct. But when you have the time and opportunity to take care of those things, first of all, get into the crawl space. If you're not doing that, then you're missing it, and can really open yourself up to some major costs. Know what's going on in the crawl space. A lot of people don't like them. I get it. I'm in them all the time, and that's not my favorite thing either. But yeah, get into the crawl space. If you're absolutely not going to do it, it's time to pay a handyman to do it. You want to make sure that things are dry. Those downspout extensions are key, looking for any low spots around the outside. Most of the work can be done on the outside, which is kind of the nice part. Making sure there's no low spots around it, but get into the crawl space. If you have a sump pump, make sure it's working. Think about putting an alarm on it. If you don't have a sump pump, that's okay. If the crawl space is dry, it doesn't need one. It's just that simple. And if vapor barrier, which is in most cases just an inexpensive plastic sheathing, you can buy those plastic rolls pretty inexpensively. Sometimes just cleaning out the debris and putting a new vapor barrier down will make the space a little bit more enticing to actually go in and check. You can spend a couple $100 on vapor barrier and redo a pretty large crawl space for a couple $100 or less. And that makes a big difference. If it's clean, people were more likely to go in, and it's easier to recognize what was old problems and what's existing. So it's once again one of those cheap, inexpensive ways to kind of stay ahead of everything.
Yeah, I feel like okay, maybe not every, but most of the crawl spaces of the houses that we've come across buying or selling have had water issues in their crawl space. And I'm not saying, all crawl spaces are bad, but I think that is the most neglected thing, or easily neglected item that could be easily taken care of. So thank you for touching on that.
Crawl spaces are a wonderful way to build a house. There's nothing wrong with a crawl space. There are pros and cons to every construction style. And there's nothing wrong at all with crawl spaces. Our building techniques have changed, and improved a lot. But one of the things to keep in mind is that in most cases, the crawl space is just the area that people don't go into. Even people that do impeccable home maintenance don't go into their crawl spaces that much. Think of it as an itty bitty basement with all the potential problems that a basement can have. So a little itty bitty basement with a dirt floor that you never go into. And the things that happen are pretty easy to think about, the things that can happen there. But what we see a lot is it's not that the crawl space itself is the problem. It's that, houses get to be, let's say, 40 to 50 years old and have never really had any work down there. Well, it's going to look like a 40 to 50-year-old itty bitty basement with a dirt floor have happened. So, and yeah, that's one thing to keep in mind. It's not that they're bad. It's that it's an area that does need maintained on every home, and a lot of the houses are now just old enough that it's time to do some of that maintenance. Yeah,
I agree. What else do you think we should be doing right now for spring maintenance? Any other tips you have for us?
Low-hanging fruit, things that will make you feel really good about the work that you've done. That crawl space is important, but it's not going to make you feel all that great because you're not going to see the benefits of it. Everybody's working on their landscaping. That's great. Use the time to think about what works best. It's less to do with the value and the sellability and the inspection stuff on a home, but we've spent a lot of time talking to neighbors that are splitting perennials. If you need more landscaping, that's the best way to get free plants, is to talk to your neighbors. Everybody's splitting stuff out right now. We do a lot of that kind of work. We enjoy it anyway. But most of the plants that I have in my landscaping were given to me by neighbors, and we've just traded them out. So it's low-hanging fruit, it's cheap, it's fun, it's a good way to talk to your neighbors about a common interest. Caulking, painting, cleaning up, pressure washing. If you have a pressure washer, that is, I don't know, maybe I'm one of the weird people, but using the pressure washer is one of the most gratifying things that you can do.
Agree.
It is cheap mental health right now. So yeah, get that pressure washer out. Clean. It's important maintenance. It'll make you feel good. It doesn't cost much. And yeah, it's just a really, really easy way to go. I personally just use a middle of the road electric pressure washer. Pressure washers can get really expensive, but if you don't have one and need one, they can be had at a reasonable price, depending on what your needs are. Depends on which one you need, but I think the electric pressure washers, they're pretty inexpensive and can meet most of the needs for most people. The gas ones are awesome, and you can really, really get some extra power out of them. but it's not necessary to spend that kind of money. We went to Sherwin-Williams and bought some paint. They're still open, doing curbside. You call them, tell them what you want. Once they mix it, they bring it out. We painted our back door, caulked and sealed all of the door and window openings, touched up the paint, and are going to be doing our deck. So those outside maintenance, the wood, the things like that, really can add, it make you feel good, it looks good, and it's important to do. Really great time to get on those things without breaking the bank. Lost your audio there.
Sorry, my dog was barking, so I was blocking him out. I know that when we're walking around the house at an inspection, the wood that you're looking at are a lot of times there's wood trim. And if somebody were going to be doing that, walking around their house, do you have any suggestions about exactly what they should be looking for? How they might know if a piece of wood needs to be replaced, even though it may be painted?
Mm-hmm. So we look for signs. So any wood that the paint's faded, the caulking isn't in great shape, that's okay. It doesn't always have to be perfect. But typically, if the wood's looking really good, there's no sense in prodding around. It's probably going to be fine. You'll see spots where it's started to expand a little bit. So anything that looks like an expansion of the wood is more than likely moisture that's gotten into it. Wood has a wonderful ability to get wet and dry repeatedly. The key is that it dries out properly. Rot only happens when moisture stays in wood. So areas that are close to different surfaces, transitions, outside corners, underneath gutters are the most susceptible because they're high moisture areas. So look at those places. That any trim that touches the roof, any trim that's in an area where a gutter's been overflowing or there's a gutter seam are the first places to look. A long-handled, flat-bladed screwdriver from the ground is usually a good way to get to that stuff. And it's just a little poking and prodding. If it's really, really soft and comes apart very easily, then it's time to replace that piece. If it's just a little bit soft, getting it dried back out. Our weather's really good for that right now. Maybe it means taking something off that's around it. Maybe it means trimming it back a little bit in cases where you just need a little bit of extra separation between a wood and a piece of roofing or something like that, to keep everything dried out, and then recalking and painting those. It's kind of a delicate balance to decide whether something's got just a little bit of normal wear, it has been getting wet, and you can fix that. Sometimes it's easier just to replace it because wood's relatively inexpensive, and sometimes just starting over is just as easy. But then that's a really good time to find all of the seams, paint that wood, stain, seal, whatever it takes. Wood has to be protected in some way when it's on the outside of a home.
So I think those are some really good tips. So make sure that the water is flowing away from the house, clean your gutters, take a look at the wood on the trim on the outside, make sure that's all been taken care of, and get in your crawl space. I mean, I think those are some amazing tips. And I think really one of the other things I hear you talk about a lot is keeping the vegetation away from the house. And that's just a really good time for, as you mentioned, the landscaping. So,
yes.
All right, now I'm going to throw one at you. If you were preparing to list your property sometime this year, what are your 5 top tips of things to check that are typically those items that come up? And we've already talked about a couple of those. I know, the crawl space is key. Wood trim is something that if you have wood and it's rotted, that comes up all the time. But maybe some inside things that would be really easy, quick, take a look at, make sure there's no issues with.
Well, some of the most common things that we see, moisture problems. So that will probably take 2 of the top 5. Your crawl space, your drainage, all of that, we can lump that together into one. It's important. Verify that you've got good drainage, that everything's working properly. That is probably the biggest thing that we see on houses is moisture problems. The next thing would be those wood surfaces looking for rot. It's low-hanging fruit. It's really easy to take care of those things when it might be a minor maintenance repair, and when it gets found during the purchase process, can be a little bit more scary because there's unknown there. We don't know how bad the problem is. We don't know if that rotten piece of trim is caused damage in behind it. So if you take care of those things up front, you've eliminated the unknown. It really goes a long way for cleaning up a house and adding to that curb appeal too. So it's a multifaceted approach that can really gain some great benefits. Staying on top of that stuff is huge. It's the biggest thing. Check your roof, the flashings, the chimneys, all of those things that don't get looked at all of the time. Once again, when you get ahead of it, it's quick and easy. And if there is a big expense that's an unknown, something that's a real problem, it's usually, and I know there's plenty of good data out here, so I'm not going to cite any numbers, but there's good data that proves that taking care of the big ticket items before a house goes into a pending deal is always going to be less expensive. A repair will always cost you less when you have the time to pick the contractors, maybe do some of it yourself, really control the costs and the way that repair gets done before you're in a contract with somebody, and time and everything gets a little bit more difficult.
And I'll just add to that, because once you're in contract, I know for myself, if I'm representing a buyer, I'm always going to ask for a licensed contractor, licensed professional, not generally the handyman,
Yep.
because we want to make sure from the other side that it's done properly. And if it's a professional, we may not have to have that home re-inspected. The buyer may choose not to have it re-inspected. They'll take the word of a licensed contractor, yep, or a professional
exactly,
that has done the work. So good tip.
Yep. And so your heating and cooling equipment now is even furnaces. I know we're not going to be using our furnaces for a while, or maybe some nights and evenings, but pretty much we're done with heatings for the year. But now's a great opportunity to have that stuff serviced. I'll tell you personally, I used to not really be a huge believer there. I kind of always felt like having the heating and cooling guy out was an opportunity for them to sell me something that I don't need. I'm a true convert. I have my systems serviced once a year. I do mine in the fall. But yeah, I have my system serviced every year, and without a doubt, it has saved me money putting a little bit of prevention into them. But cleaning that stuff up, just the simple cleanings and going through all of it is really, really important. Maintenance of all of your major mechanicals, heating and cooling, plumbing, as far as like your water heaters and things like that. Now is a great time to get that maintenance done. The house presents much better when all of those things are super clean and nice, even if they're not brand new or getting a little bit more on the old side. Seeing that stuff's been properly maintained really gives buyers a lot of confidence that what they're buying, even if it's not perfect, is good and will likely last.
I know that one thing that people really overlook, and this sounds so silly, but under their sinks, it becomes it's like the ugly closet. Everything gets pushed in there, nobody looks. But it's amazing the amount of times that there's a minor leak down there that people don't even realize. So this would be a good time while you're cleaning, pull everything out, make sure there's no signs of leak, any kind of corrosion or anything like that.
And those minor leaks are almost always in the drain lines, and it's a simple tightening of fittings that are, it doesn't require any special tools. Just remember lefty loosey, righty tighty, and if you got a little drip, snug it up, dry it out, and try again. See if everything's working.
Simple rather than having to pay for a plumber to come out and do it later.
Exactly. Windows are another good one. We talk about presentation on things. We're not necessarily in the inspection report going to care at all about how clean windows are. We're looking at function. but it can go a long way. You know, checking those for those leaks when you're down there. Clean underneath sinks gets nasty. I'm pretty good at overlooking those. I see a lot of it. You know, everybody thinks their house is awful, but trust me, there's somebody's house that's way grosser than yours. But yeah, those things go a long way. I, for one, clean windows make me really, really happy. We did a major cleaning on all our windows, but it gives you a really good time to make sure that they're all working and there's no problems. Windows are a big thing that come up on inspections, as far as function and problems. And once again, it's cheap and easy to get ahead of those problems, or cheaper and easier to get ahead of those kind of problems. And once again, maybe a little bit of a personal thing, but I think clean windows are one of those things that you might not notice. That's why you think the house looks really clean and maintained, but it makes a huge difference. Clean your windows, folks.
Yeah, cleaning in general, just, a lot of people will have dirt around the edges of their baseboards and just, dirty vents, and that's a sign of not being very clean. So that's a very simple thing you can do to keep that vision of a clean house going. So definitely a good tip.
And we're all human. I've got 3 kids and 2 dogs. There's a reason my video, way my office is set up.
Me too.
I want to see what's going on in the rest of my office. We're all the same in that. Nobody's perfect there, but now is a really good time to handle those things, and B, especially if you're getting ready to list, that presentation. Buyers are really looking for confidence. I'm a firm believer that the things that I do, and I tell my customers this all the time, the reason they're willing to pay me money to inspect their house is for peace of mind and confidence. The things that come up during inspections, sometimes there's some major things because it's an unknown. Most people try to maintain their houses to the best of their ability. That's pretty universal. So a lot of times the major issues are things that people just didn't know about. It's going to be a surprise to everybody. So give yourself a little bit of grace and understand that we're all the same in that. But people are looking for that confidence, and a clean, really well presenting home will always go better because it inspires that confidence in people that they're buying something that's been maintained. I use the term all the time, well-loved houses are the best ones. Old houses, new houses, the well-loved ones always fare better.
I agree. I'm going to ask about one last tip specifically because I know, again, I don't mean to keep preaching moisture about everything, but it just seems to be the common thread, whether it's plumbing, landscaping, roofs, gutters, everything comes back to, it seems like, to moisture.
Water, always water, and sometimes electricity.
Yeah, so we touched on the leaky sinks, but I know there's one other tip. I know I tell all the people when I list the house, go around and wiggle your toilets and see if they're loose. Yeah. I know that sounds silly, but do you want to talk about that for a second?
So the way, this is kind of amazing to me, the way we attach our toilets to our plumbing systems pretty much has never changed. There's 2 itty bitty bolts in a metal or plastic flange that stick into the porcelain, and 2 itty bitty nuts that tighten it all down. And the thing that seals everything that moves through the toilet into the plumbing system is a wax ring. There are new products and materials out there that I like a lot. We'll touch on that here in a second. But the way that we check toilets, it's not my toilet, so I try not to grab it with my hands. We use our knees. Look a little funny, but I'll walk up to the toilet, grab it with both knees, and kind of wiggle it from side to side, and then use my other knee and push on it. It's your toilet. Grab a hold of it if you're not worried about it. I know at my house, obviously, it's my toilet. It's a little bit different. But yeah, check those toilets. Make sure they're tight. And there's going to be a little bit of movement in any toilet. The way they're attached is not the most robust attachment system there is. But make sure they're not wiggling and moving. Look for signs of water around the base. If that hardware is rusting out, that's a good indicator that there's maybe a little bit of a leak. If the floor feels a little spongy underneath, that's a really good chance that it's been a leak that's been going on for a while. And toilets will loosen up over time, especially when they're attached to tile. You don't want to over tighten the toilet on tile because you can actually damage the tile. So it's very common for those to come loose over time. The ones that we see more often than not that are loose is the master bedroom and the powder room. The toilets that you use the most, whatever that may be in your home, are the ones that really need that. A simple wax ring is usually the only thing that needs to be done. It's not a fun job, but it is an easy job. Google, YouTube, you're going to be able to find good resources on the specifics of how to do this. But sometimes, or more often than not, tightening it down or just going ahead and replacing that wax ring is going to solve the problem. Wax rings are a couple dollars for a standard wax ring. And by a couple dollars, I mean, I think they're under $4 still. There is also a newer, and I think better option. It's what I've been using, is the foam wax rings. They're reusable. So if you mess up when you're setting the toilet, you can lift it back up. And if you replace any flooring, you can reuse it. It eliminates a lot of the gross. And they're about $15 to $18, which is exponentially higher than the $4 wax ring, but it's still relatively inexpensive. I've had good luck. I had a problem toilet. I've got an old house, and just things were difficult to get right. And I had one that had given me some problems over the years, and the foam ring is actually what ended up completely permanently solving the problem for me. So I've become a pretty good proponent of them after having some really good luck myself.
Do you think those would work better on the tile flooring? I know we have tile flooring, and we constantly have a little bit of an issue with it wiggling and working itself loose.
Yeah, I think that you would have a much better potential for that being a permanent solution. I don't know that it's inherently better, but it's more maintainable, because once the wax is set, if there's movement, the seal will break, and you can have a problem where you don't know that there's a problem. So I think up against tile, they do make shims, spacers, rubber grommets, and things you can use to cushion up against tile. A lot of it's improvised. I've done it before against a concrete floor, which is kind of similar in that case. But yeah, they do make products to help with that, and it's advisable if you're a little bit nervous about it to maybe go ahead and do that. But yeah, the reusability of the foam ones really lend themselves well to a tile application.
Cool. Well, Jon, thank you so much for all of your tips and knowledge. I always appreciate it. Every time I have to say I'm on an inspection, I always learn something new. So I appreciate I appreciate that. So I want to just also say the thing I love about you is that you're such a teacher. I love when I have a first-time home buyer and they choose you to do their home inspection, because you have such a soothing way of talking to people that it allows them to know really what's important, what's a really major issue that needs to be addressed right away, and what items are normal maintenance issues that they're going to have to keep an eye on for years and years and years. And so I'm very much a teacher myself in that aspect. I like to teach my clients as the process goes on. And I love that about you. You do a really good job with that. So thank you.
Well, thank you. It really is the part that makes the job the most fun. So it's a pleasure to do it. I'm always happy to do that. It's kind of a wonderful thing for me to have found something that I can do where my random knowledge finally paid off. You know, all of the random skills that I've picked up is finally paid off in something. So it's nice to share that with people.
So one last thing, I know a lot of people, if they were thinking about purchasing or purchasing or selling a home know about inspections, but if they need more information or if they would like to have a pre-listing inspection, what's your contact information and how can they reach you?
So our phones are answered Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. On Saturdays from 8 to 5. So you can always reach us on our office line. That's really the quickest and easiest way to get a hold of us. That number is 317-550-4044. Our website has an option to request information digitally, and we can communicate completely via email there. The website is pillartopost.com/Jon Corrothers. So that'll get you to our website. And if you go directly to our Pillar to Post website, you'll get myself or one of my staff by going that route. We can communicate through our text line or through our business line by text as well. So you can text that number, the email, or you can just send an email to the Jon Corrothers team at pillartopost.com. That's our team email address, and me and one of my staff will always respond to emails there. So there's several of us that monitor all of the communication that's coming in. We love to have that. Pre-listing home inspections are a great idea. They're gaining popularity. Obviously, during a purchase, we always recommend a home inspection. And we're actually seeing a little bit of an uptick in maintenance inspections. People just calling because they want us to come go through a house that they live in and are planning to still live in, to kind of help compile that list of things and get the peace of mind and knowledge of everything that's going on. So we're actually seeing an uptick in that. I think it's a great idea. It's not something that everybody's going to want to spend their money on, or may even need to. But if that's something that appeals to you, then it's always a good idea to get extra information.
Definitely. That as you were speaking, it just made me think we ought to really do a video too about all the different types of inspections that you offer.
Yeah.
Because people come and when they're ready to purchase a home, they're not really sure, like, well, what kind of inspections do I need? So maybe that's our next video.
Yeah, that'd be good. We have a lot. We have a lot of extra services, a lot of products that we offer. You can spend a lot of money on a home inspection if you want, but there's times when that just makes a lot of sense. And for most people, it's an inspection plus a couple little things. But educating people on those things is always really important. I'd love to do a video on it. These are fun. But in the meantime, if you do have questions, we have lots and lots of good resources on our website about that. Booking with us, there's videos on all of those things. So we have a lot of good information available to that already. So spend some time on our website if you've got questions or bored and curious about more about what we do. There's lots of good information out there.
Well, thanks again, Jon. I hope you stay safe, and I appreciate your time today.
Thanks, you too. Have a good one.
Thanks.